Hi, friends. So, when life is good and everything is going your way, it is easy to believe that the way you live your life is the right way to live it. You don't really question what you're redoing because it is working out for you, and so you just keep doing it. But then something happens in life where all of a sudden things go wrong, and they can go very wrong very quickly. And when that happens, it really forces you to self reflect. It forces you to reevaluate how you've been living your life up until that point. And if you take the time to do this properly, this can be an amazing thing because it really makes you understand what your core values are. I personally have gone through a number of these moments in my life where things have gone really wrong. And each time I've gone through one of these moments and come out the other side, I've come out with a better set of values about how I should live my life. So let us talk about a couple of these moments that I went through and how they changed me forever. Okay, so the first time I went through one of these moments was actually quite early on in my life. So this would have been around 2014, 2015. Now I was a pretty sporty kid growing up. I played a lot of sports, and the main sport that I played was soccer. And from a very young age, I was always competing and playing soccer. And at some point in my life, I decided that I wanted to try and become a professional soccer player. And I worked extremely hard towards this goal. So basically, after school, I would go and train, and I did this like every day, Monday to Sunday. And I even sacrificed playing video games and hanging out with friends just to pursue this goal. So I really put everything into trying to become a professional soccer player. Now, for anyone who doesn't know much about soccer or how the sport works, basically what happens is there are open tryouts where scouts from different teams will come and watch you play. And then based on your performance at these open tryouts, they might invite you to join the team. So this is what I was working towards. I was working towards having a good enough performance at one of these open tryouts so that a scout would offer me a contract. Well, unfortunately, even though I trained incredibly hard and I had this goal for many years, I never ended up getting a professional contract. And so essentially what happened was I went through a period of my life where I had put everything into achieving this goal, but ultimately I didn't achieve it. And so I had to ask myself, well, now what? What do I do with my life? Because I had given it literally everything and I had nothing to show for it. Now, this was definitely one of the most difficult periods of my life because I had put so much effort into pursuing this one goal and I failed to achieve it. But at the same time, this was also one of the best things that could have happened to me because it forced me to self-reflect and it forced me to completely change the way I viewed the world. Up until this point in my life, I had always been very competitive, and I had always been someone who was striving to achieve more and more. And although there's absolutely nothing wrong with being competitive and striving to achieve more, this had become the only thing that I focused on. And I realized that this wasn't necessarily a bad thing when I was pursuing a goal that I really wanted to achieve. However, it did become a problem when I started to focus too much on the competition and not enough on myself and my own personal growth. So coming to terms with this was a long process and it took a lot of time. But eventually I was able to look back on this period of my life and see it as one of the best things that could have ever happened to me because it taught me to focus more on myself and less on external factors such as other people and their opinions. Okay, so moving on from here. Another time where things went drastically wrong was obviously last year. I think we all know what happened. I lost my job and I had to start a new company. And as you can imagine, this was a pretty scary thing to go through. On one hand, I was excited because it gave me the opportunity to build a business that I am super passionate about. But at the same time, it was very scary because I had no idea whether or not I was going to not be able to make this work. And to be honest, there were a lot of days where I felt like I was failing and I felt like my business was just never going to succeed. But again, just like with the previous situation, I knew that I needed to use this time to reflect and to figure out what I actually wanted out of life. Because up until this point, I had been working for other people, and I had never really had control over my own schedule, and I hadn't really had the opportunity to build something from scratch. And so this whole experience last year really taught me how important it is to have control over the work that you redoing. It taught me how important it is to feel fulfilled by the work that you redoing and to make sure that you re-spending your time doing things that align with your core values. For me personally, one of my core values is freedom, and I value my time more than anything else. And so going through this experience last year of building my own business really taught me how important it is to have control over your schedule and to make sure that you're re-spending your time doing things that align with your core values. The third time where things went drastically wrong was actually earlier this year. And for those of you who don't know, I have a severe peanut allergy, and I've talked about this on the channel before. And basically earlier this year, I accidentally ate some food that had peanuts in it, and I had a massive allergic reaction, and I ended up in hospital for a week. And as you can imagine, this was a pretty scary thing to go through. But again, it gave me a lot of time to self-reflect, and it made me realize how precious life is and how I need to be living my life exactly the way I want to. Because at that moment when I was in hospital, I didn't know whether or not I was going to survive. And this really made me reflect on how I've been living my life up until that point. And it made me realize that I needed to start living my life exactly the way I want to. I needed to start taking more risks, and I needed to start pursuing the things that I am truly passionate about. And so once I was released from hospital, I took a step back and I really evaluated the way I was living my life, and I asked myself, am I happy with the direction that things are going in? And the answer was no. And so that S when I decided to pursue YouTube full time and to start putting out videos that I am super passionate about and that I hope will help other people. So those are 3 times where things went drastically wrong in my life, but they ended up being some of the best things that could have ever happened to me. These situations forced me to self-reflect, and they forced me to reevaluate the way I was living my life up until that point. And so I guess my advice to you is whenever things go wrong, whenever things don't go the way that you want them to, use that as an opportunity for growth. Use that as an opportunity to self-reflect and to really evaluate the way you living your life up until that point. Because sometimes things have to get really bad before we're forced to make a change and to do something that we've been putting off for a long time. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.